The courtroom was packed, buzzing with the restless energy of spectators eager for the day's spectacle. High ceilings echoed the sharp tap of Judge Harold Whitmore's gavel as he called the session to order. His stern face etched with impatience. The case before him was, in his mind, a simple one. Another juvenile delinquent, another petty crime. But the moment the defendant was led in, the atmosphere shifted. She was small, drowning in an oversized hoodie, her dark hair falling messily over her downcast eyes. 16-year-old Emily Carter shuffled forward, her hands tucked into her sleeves, looking every bit the frightened child the media had painted her to be. The charge: unauthorized access to a high-security corporate database, cybercrime. A serious offense, yet, to Judge Whitmore, she was just another misguided youth who didn't grasp the consequences of her actions. "Miss Carter," he drawled, leaning forward with a condescending smirk. "Do you even understand the severity of what you've done? Or were you just playing games on your computer, like all kids these days?" A ripple of laughter spread through the gallery. The prosecutor, a smug man in a tailored suit, barely suppressed a grin. Emily didn't react, her face unreadable beneath the shadow of her hood. Whitmore continued, his voice dripping with mock concern. "This isn't some schoolyard prank, young lady. You could be facing real prison time. Do you have anything to say for yourself?" For a long moment, silence, stretched. Then slowly, Emily lifted her head, her eyes sharp, calculating, locked onto the judge's. The air in the room seemed to still. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but unwavering. "Your Honor, before we proceed, I'd like to motion for dismissal on the grounds of prosecutorial misconduct." The judge blinked. The prosecutor stiffened. The spectators murmured in confusion. Emily continued, her tone measured, as if she were reciting from a legal textbook. "The evidence against me was obtained without a proper warrant, violating the Fourth Amendment. Furthermore, the prosecution failed to disclose exculpatory evidence, which is a clear Brady violation." Judge Whitmore's amusement vanished, his grip on the gavel tight. "Young lady, you are in no position to..." Additionally, Emily interrupted, her voice gaining strength. "The arresting officer's testimony contradicts the digital forensic report, which was conveniently omitted from discovery." She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a folded document. "I have the full report here, Your Honor. It proves the data logs were tampered with, meaning someone else hacked that system and framed me." The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled for their recorders. The prosecutor's face drained of color. Judge Whitmore's jaw clenched as he snatched the document, scanning it with growing disbelief. Every line was accurate, every argument airtight. This wasn't the desperate plea of a clueless teenager. It was the defense of someone who knew the law better than most attorneys. As the judge struggled to regain control, Emily allowed herself the faintest smirk. The game had just begun, and Judge Whitmore had no idea who he was really dealing with. The courtroom fell into stunned silence as Emily Carter's words hung in the air like a blade poised to strike. Judge Whitmore's face twisted from smug condescension into open shock, his fingers trembling slightly as he clutched the forensic report she had handed him. The prosecutor, a man named Richard Voss, who had built his career on crushing underprepared defendants, suddenly looked like a cornered animal. His carefully constructed case was unraveling before his eyes, and the girl he had dismissed as a powerless delinquent was now dismantling his arguments with surgical precision. Emily didn't raise her voice, didn't sneer in triumph. She simply stood there, her posture relaxed but her eyes alight with an unsettling intelligence. The spectators who had come expecting a quick conviction now leaned forward in their seats, sensing the shift in the room. Something extraordinary was happening. Whitmore cleared his throat, attempting to regain control. "Miss Carter," he said, his tone now cautious, "these are serious allegations. You are not a legal professional. Do you truly expect this court to believe you've uncovered flaws that trained lawyers missed?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the gallery. Surely this was just the desperate flailing of a scared kid. But Emily didn't flinch. Instead, she reached into the pocket of her hoodie again and produced a second document, this one bearing the official seal of the State Bar Association. I may not look the part, Your Honor, she said calmly. But I passed the bar exam 6 months ago. I've been working under the mentorship of attorney Daniel Reeves at the Innocence Defense Project. The room exploded into noise. Reporters scrambled for their phones, snapping pictures of the teenage girl who had just announced she was a licensed attorney. Judge Whitmore's face went pale. Richard Voss looked like he might be sick. Emily continued, her voice cutting through the chaos. I'd been investigating this case for months. The real hacker was a corporate insider, and the police ignored the evidence because they wanted an easy conviction. And you, Your Honor, signed off on the warrant without reviewing the discrepancies. The accusation was a grenade tossed directly into the heart of the courtroom. Whitmore's grip on his gavel turned white knuck. You are out of line, he snarled. But there was a flicker of fear beneath his anger. Emily didn't back down. Am I? She turned to face the gallery, addressing the room. Then let's hear from the lead investigator. Officer Duran, you testified earlier that the IP address traced back to my computer, but the full logs show the hack originated from inside the company's own server room. Would you like to explain why that wasn't in your report? A burly detective in the front row stiffened, his face darkening. Emily didn't wait for an answer. She pulled out a flash drive and held it up. I have the complete network logs here. They prove I was framed, and they also prove something else. Someone paid to make this case go away. The room erupted again. Whitmore slammed his gavel, shouting for order. But the damage was done. The reporters were already live tweeting the bombshell revelation. Voss was frantically whispering to his team, and Emily, she stood perfectly still, watching the chaos, with the calm of a chess master who had just checkmated her opponent. But this was only the beginning, because Emily Carter wasn't just a genius attorney in disguise. She was on a mission, and Judge Whitmore had just become her next target. The courtroom erupted into pandemonium as Emily Carter's words struck like lightning. I passed the bar exam 6 months ago. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing, while the prosecutor, Richard Voss, clutched the edge of his table as if the ground had shifted beneath him. Judge Whitmore's face twisted between fury and disbelief, his gavel pounding uselessly against the rising tide of noise. But Emily didn't flinch. With deliberate precision, she reached up and pulled back her hood, revealing a sleek professional bun hidden beneath. Then, in one fluid motion, she unzipped her oversized sweatshirt and let it drop to the floor, exposing a perfectly tailored navy suit beneath the uniform of a litigator, not a defendant. Gasps rippled through the crowd as she turned to face the judge, her posture now radiating authority. My name, she announced, her voice ringing clear, is Elena Carter, and I am an attorney with the Innocence Defense Project. She reached into her jacket and produced a folded letter embossed with an official seal. This is a sworn affidavit from the State Bar confirming my credentials. I've been working undercover for the past 8 months, investigating a pattern of wrongful convictions tied to this courthouse convictions you presided over. Your Honor. The room fell deathly silent. Whitmore's face drained of color. Elena didn't. And today we're not just here to prove my innocence. We're here to expose yours. The prosecutor shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is outrageous. She's manipulating the court. Elena didn't even glance at him. Instead, she tapped a button on her phone, and the courtroom's overhead screens flickered to life. A video began playing. A grainy but unmistakable shot of Judge Whitmore in a dimly lit restaurant, accepting a thick envelope from a man in a pinstripe suit. The timestamp read 3 weeks prior. That's Malcolm Dresner, Elena said coolly, CEO of the company whose database was hacked. The same man who filed the charges against me. And that envelope, it contains $250,000 in cash payment for ensuring my conviction. Whitmore's chair screeched as he lurched up. This is a setup, he roared. But the damage was done. The video cut to a second clip. Whitmore on the phone, growling. Make sure the kid takes the fall. We can't afford another loose end. Elena crossed her arms. You didn't just take a bribe, Judge. You conspired to frame me because I was getting too close to the truth. Dresner's company has been covering up embezzlement for years, and you've been helping them silence whistleblowers. She turned to the gallery, where a stunned Officer Duran sat frozen. And the police, they knew. Detective, how many times have you lost evidence that didn't fit the narrative? Duran's face turned ashen. Before anyone could react, the doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. 2 federal agents strode in, flanked by a grim-faced woman in a Justice Department badge. Judge Harold Whitmore, she declared, You're under arrest for conspiracy, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Whitmore's legs buckled. The gavel clattered to the floor. As the agents moved in, Elena finally allowed herself a small, cold smile. You mocked me for being a child, she murmured. Just loud enough for him to hear. But it wasn't my ignorance on trial today. And with that, the girl who had walked in as a defendant left the courtroom a victor, with the entire justice system scrambling in her wake. The moment the handcuffs clicked around Judge Whitmore's wrists, the courtroom erupted into chaos. Reporters shoved past bailiffs, shouting questions, while spectators stood frozen in shock. Whitmore, his face a mask of barely contained rage, spat at Elena. You think you've won? You're just a child playing with forces you don't understand. But Elena didn't flinch. She watched, calm and unmoving, as federal agents led him away, his expensive shoes scuffing against the polished floor like a man already defeated. The prosecutor, Richard Voss, had gone ghostly pale, frantically gathering his papers as if hoping to disappear in the commotion. But Elena wasn't done yet. With a sharp nod to the Justice Department agent, a woman named Sarah Reyes, who had been working with her in secret for months, Elena turned to the courtroom's screens. A new video began playing, this one showing Whitmore in his chambers, speaking to a shadowy figure. The Carter girl is digging too deep. If she finds the connection to the mayor, we're all finished. The room gasped. The mayor. Elena's voice cut through the murmurs. This isn't just about bribe. It's about a network. Judges, politicians, even law enforcement, working together to protect the powerful and bury the innocent. Then came the bombshell. The video switched to surveillance footage from a private office. Mayor Robert Haskins, sitting across from Malcolm Dresner, the CEO whose company had framed Elena. Whitmore handles the convictions, Haskins said, sipping whiskey. You handle the payout. And as long as we control who gets investigated, nobody asks questions. The footage was damning, unmistakable. Elena let the silence stretch before speaking again. For the last year, I've been building this case, not just for me, for every person wrongfully convicted under Whitmore's watch, for every case buried, because it was too messy to solve. The room was electric with tension. Then from the back, a voice rang out. An older man, his face lined with grief. My son was sentenced to life by Whitmore. They said he was guilty. They lied. Others followed, voices rising in a chorus of anger and betrayal. Families of the wrongfully imprisoned, witnesses who had been silenced, even a retired cop who had tried to expose the corruption years ago and was forced into early retirement. Elena had brought them all here today, waiting for this moment. As federal agents moved to secure the courtroom, Elena stepped down from the stand, no longer a defendant, no longer a hidden genius playing a role. She was Elena Carter, attorney, and she had just torn open the city's darkest secret. But as she caught sight of Dresner being escorted out in cuffs, his eyes locked onto hers with a promise of vengeance. She knew this was far from over. The media frenzy that erupted after Judge Whitmore's arrest was unlike anything the city had ever seen. News vans swarmed the courthouse steps, their blinding lights cutting through the dusk, as talking heads dissected every frame of the damning footage Elena had unleashed. Headlines screamed, "Teen legal prodigy exposes corruption at the highest levels." But inside the sleek, high-security offices of the U.S. Attorney's building, Elena Carter wasn't celebrating. She sat across from Agent Sarah Reyes, the glow of a laptop screen, casting sharp shadows across her face as she scrolled through encrypted files, each one a ticking time bomb. "Whitmore's just the start," Elena murmured, zooming in on a financial trail, linking Mayor Haskins to offshore accounts. "The real power players are still out there, and they know we're coming." Reyes leaned forward, her voice low. "We've got Dresner in custody, but he's not talking, and Haskins, he's lawyered up with every high-powered attorney in the state." Elena's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up a surveillance photo. The mayor meeting with a man in a tailored suit outside a private club. Because they're scared, they thought they were untouchable. A notification pinged, an alert from a backdoor she'd planted in the courthouse's internal server. Her breath caught. Someone had just accessed Whitmore's sealed case files, illegally. "They're not just hiding now," she said, snapping the laptop shut. "They're hunting." Across town in a penthouse overlooking the skyline, Mayor Haskins smashed a crystal glass against the wall. "That little bitch," he snarled to the man in the shadows, a man with a federal badge on his belt. "You were supposed to bury the evidence." The detective, a high-ranking officer named Grayson, wiped whiskey from his sleeve. "We did, but she's not working alone. Someone inside the DOJ is feeding her intel." Haskins's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Cleanup required."
The Carter girl has the ledger. The mayor's face went slack. The ledger, the encrypted master file detailing every bribe, every payoff, every silenced witness. If it went public, it wouldn't just end careers, it would burn the entire city's power structure to the ground. Elena knew the danger. She'd seen the threats, the car that had slowed beside her apartment the night before, the phishing attempts on her encrypted drives. But as she stepped out into the rain-slicked street, her hand brushed the USB drive hidden in her coat pocket. The ledger, the key, to it all. A taxi screeched to a halt in front of her, and the window rolled down to reveal Daniel Reeves, her mentor at the Innocence Defense Project. His face grim. "Get in, now." As the car pulled away, tires hissed on wet pavement behind them, a black SUV with tinted windows, accelerating fast. The game had changed. No more courtroom battles, no more chess moves in the light. This was war, and Elena had just become the most wanted person in the city. The black SUV roared through the rain-lashed streets, its headlights cutting through the gloom, as Elena Carter gripped the door handle, her pulse hammering in her throat. The taxi swerved around a corner, tires screeching, and Daniel Reeves cursed under his breath, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "They've been tracking you since the courthouse," he snapped, glancing at the rearview mirror, where the SUV was gaining. Relentless. Elena's mind raced. Who had compromised her? A mole in the Justice Department? A tapped phone? The USB drive in her pocket felt like it was burning a hole through her coat, its contents too explosive to fall into the wrong hand. She pulled out her phone and typed a rapid command into an encrypted chat. Initiate protocol lockdown. Across the city, servers housing the ledger's data would now be scrambling their locations, buying her precious time. But time was running out. The SUV rammed them from behind, metal crunching, and Elena's head snapped forward. "We can't outrun them," Daniel shouted. Ahead, the neon glare of the financial district flickered through the downpour. Elena made a split-second decision. There, turn into the parking garage. The taxi veered sharply, plunging into the concrete labyrinth. Just as the SUV's occupants opened fire, bullets sparked against the walls. Elena didn't flinch. She had trained for this. As the car skidded to a halt on the third level, Elena yanked open the door. "Go, get to the safe house." Daniel grabbed her arm. "You're not doing this alone. I have to," she cut in, her voice steel. "They want me, and I'm the only one who can decrypt the ledger." Before he could argue, she sprinted into the shadows, her footsteps echoing, as the SUV's doors slammed shut behind her. The hunt was on. In his penthouse, Mayor Haskins paced like a caged animal, his phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care how you do it," he screamed at the man on the other end. "That ledger cannot go public." The voice that replied was calm. "Icy, we'll handle it. But remember, you authorized this mess. If we burn, you burn with us." The line went dead. Haskins hurled the phone across the room, his mind racing. He had one last card to play. Elena ducked into an abandoned office space, her fingers flying across a stolen laptop. As she bypassed firewalls, with practiced ease, the ledger's files flickered to life. Names, dates, amounts, millions in bribes, dozens of corrupted officials. And then, the final piece, a video file labeled Haskins, terminal order. She clicked it. The mayor's face filled the screen. "Whitmer's getting reckless. If the Carter girl exposes him, we cut ties, permanently." A pause, then chillingly clear. "Make it look like suicide." Elena's blood ran cold. Whitmore hadn't just been a corrupt judge, he'd been a loose end, and now, so was she. A floorboard creaked behind her. She spun, just as a gun cocked. Detective Grayson stepped from the shadows, his badge glinting. "Sorry, kid. Orders are orders." Elena smiled. "You should have checked your six." A click echoed behind Grayson. Agent Reyes emerged, her own gun leveled. "Federal custody. Drop it." The trap had sprung. By dawn, the city would wake to headlines of the mayor's arrest, the detective's betrayal, and the full, unredacted ledger splashed across every news outlet. But as Elena stood on the rooftop, watching the first light break over the skyline, she knew the real fight was just beginning. The powerful never surrendered quietly, and neither would she. The city awoke to chaos. News stations blared live footage of Mayor Haskins being walked out of his mansion in handcuffs, his tailored suit rumpled, his face a mask of stunned fury. Federal agents swarmed government buildings, seizing documents, arresting high-ranking officials whose names had been buried in the ledger's damning files. The streets buzzed with protests and celebrations alike. Decades of corruption, finally exposed by a 17-year-old girl who had outmaneuvered them all. But Elena Carter wasn't watching the news. She stood in the quiet of a private office at the U.S. Attorney's headquarters, her reflection ghostly in the glass of a framed photo. Her parents, smiling, forever frozen in time before their deaths, in a suspicious car accident years ago, the accident that had set her on this path. Agent Reyes entered, tossing a file onto the desk. Haskins is singing like a canary to save his skin. He's giving us everyone. The cops on payroll, the judges, even the senators who looked the other way. Elena didn't turn, and Dresner, Reyes sighed, still silent. But we've got enough to bury him. Finally, Elena faced her. No, I want him broken. She slid a flash drive across the table. This is the unedited footage of him ordering Whitmore's murder. Leak it. Let the world see who he really is. By noon, the video was everywhere. Dresner, snarling at a henchman. Whitmore knew too much. Dump his body where they'll blame it on the cartels. The public outcry was instantaneous. The stock of Dresner's company plummeted. His wife filed for divorce. And in a locked interrogation room, the once untouchable CEO finally cracked, offering names, dates, every dirty secret in exchange for a plea deal. But Elena wasn't done. That evening, she stood at a podium outside the courthouse where she'd once been mocked as a defendant. Microphones bristled like weapons. Cameras flashed like gunfire. Behind her, a banner read, "The Carter Initiative. Justice Reform Now." "This isn't just about punishment," she declared, her voice steady. "It's about rebuilding a system that's rotted from the inside." She announced free legal clinics for the wrongfully convicted, a watchdog group to monitor judicial misconduct, and scholarships for kids like her, the ones the system had written off. As she stepped away, a reporter shouted, "What's next for you?" Elena paused, then smiled, a real one, for the first time in years. "Whatever they try to hide," she said, "I'll find it." And as she walked away, the crowd erupting in applause behind her, one thing was certain, the game had changed forever.